Proverbs 25:28 says this, a man without self-control is like a city broken into and left without walls. So if we're going to lead others, which is where we're going. We got to first lead ourselves, rule ourselves. That's what the world needs is self-ruled men with self-control. Lots of things we can talk about. There's lots of sins that men are prone to. We'll hit some of those. But I want to focus tonight on slaying the dragon of lust, which has always been one of man's greatest battles and certainly is today. And I think lust, and of course, when you talk about lust, you have to talk about pornography right along with it. Lust is broader than pornography. But pornography in particular, probably more than others, it handcuffs biblical manhood. It incapacitates fruitful masculinity. It paralyzes godly male leadership. Tim Challies says, every single act of sexual sin reduces your ability to be an effective leader and an effective lover. So if we're talking about leading and loving, this is true. There is no more productive producer of passive effeminacy than pornography. I'll say that again. There is no more productive producer of passive effeminacy in our day than pornography. So I want to talk a little bit about where we're at culturally. I probably don't have to share any of this because you all know it. But it's a problem. It's an epidemic. Many have talked about the difference today versus even 10 years ago or 20 years ago. You think about like when I was in high school, if I wanted to look at pornography, it was quite a process to do so. I was exposed to pornography at 5 years old. I was staying over with a friend, and his friend had a stash of magazines, and he got them out of curiosity. At 5, you don't even really have categories for what's going on. At least back in 1989, you didn't. So I was just confused, and I'm so thankful by God's grace. One, I'm thankful that I didn't grow up in the age of smartphones. I'm also just thankful that a lot of those stories of that early exposure leads to, what's up, my guy? Good to see you, man. Leads to really major problems later in life. So I'm super thankful, but I'm also on guard on a host of ways. We'll talk later about protecting, lead, love, provide, protect. And when it comes to protecting, it's one of the reasons my family doesn't do sleepovers. So if you ever ask, like, can the white kids come over? It's automatic no, nothing against you. But we just don't do that. Not much good comes out of it, certainly in my own life. But it was quite a process, right? You had to go into a convenience store and you had to go to the back and you had to reach to the top of the magazine rack and it was covered in plastic. Everybody knew what you were doing. You had to bring it and you had to pay for it. And so it's very different today when you have these 3 A's that many talk about. The affordability, well, back then you had to buy it. Well, now it's just free. It's weird to me that there's pornography that you have to buy because there's so much that's free. It's affordable. It's accessible. So again, not many people are going to take those 5 steps of public humiliation to go buy a pornographic magazine. Well, now it's accessible in your pocket. Just a few clicks. And of course, there's the other A of anonymity. You don't have to be public and you don't have to be seen. You can do it in the privacy of your own home. Just how bad is it? The average age of exposure seems like it lowers every year. The last I saw was 8 years old. Recently heard about a wily first grader being exposed to pornography at school. By age 14, 94% of children have seen it. 90% of boys, 60% of girls say they were exposed before 18. The number one consumer is boys aged 12 to 17. 68% of, as I throw a lot of stats out, I just want you to see that they're all like vast majority, right? 68% of church-going men. 68% of church-going men. 54% of pastors in a large survey admitted to viewing it on a regular basis. Another study revealed that 64% of Christian men, 15% of Christian women admit to watching it once a month, at least once a month. 64% of Christian men watching it once a month. 57% of pastors say that porn addiction is the most damaging issue in their congregation. It's one of the first questions we ask in terms of marital counseling is tell me about your relationship with pornography. According to Covenant Eyes, 1/3 come across it weekly, even when not seeking it. And that's the hard part today, is probably the last 3 or 4 times I've seen nudity online, I wasn't looking for it. The last one I think was, I won't name the brand, but a mainstream brand with several just bare breasts advertising different types of sports bras that fits all the various shapes of breasts out there. Which, today many would not say that's even pornography. Well, by whose definition, I certainly would. 71% of teens, the vast majority, have done something to hide what they do from their parents. That's the thing of you, parents of adolescents. You got to know that. They're going to be sharper than you. Now 40% of users are female, so it's a whole new phenomenon. One site, just one pornographic website, now this is old now, this is almost 10 years old, had 4.6 billion hours in 1 year, 17,000 complete lifetimes. Just one website, just one. Now consider this, the number of years that it took a product to gain 50 million users, okay? So cars, how long did it take for 50 million people to have a car? It took 62 years once it was introduced. 62 years later, 50 million. Phones, telephones, 50 years to have 50 million users. ATMs are invented. 18 years later, you had 50 million users. Cell phones were invented. Then you had 12 years until you had 50 million users. YouTube was launched 4 years later. It had 50 million users. Facebook was launched 3 years later. It had 50 million users. Pornhub, 19 days. And it had 50 million users. 40 million Americans are regular visitors. Most of it's free. In the porn's industry, the annual revenue is more than the NFL, NBA, and MLB combined. 60 billion in the world a year. 1 of every 8 online searches, 1 of every 5 mobile searches is for pornography. Pornography takes up a third of the web's bandwidth. And so we know that it's a problem. And we're talking about pornography here, but again, you can just turn on mainstream TV and things that we would have called pornography a generation ago are fairly normalized. We're in what one book calls a pornified culture. In 2018, so that's getting further away from us. New York Times ran an article exposing how schools are teaching porn literacy. Maggie Jones writes, for around 2 hours each week for 5 weeks, the students, sophomores, juniors, and seniors take part in porn literacy. It's a class which aims to make them savvier, more critical consumers of porn by examining how gender, sexuality, aggression, consent, race, queer sex, relationships, and body images are portrayed, or in the case of consent, not portrayed in porn. Public schools, we got a problem. And sex is a good gift. We're going to talk about that later. And so just a reminder, especially single guys, your sex drive is a good thing. It's given to you by God to drive you to God-honoring sex within marriage. And we've talked about how the delay of marriage is part because we're snuffing out our sex drive with the use of pornography. It's the sex drive that drives men to get married. And well, when you're finding that scratch itched elsewhere, it's delaying things. Pornography stifles the main thing that drives a man to marry and therefore grow up. And so pornography makes men impotent in more than one way. It infantilizes men by providing a fake shortcut to pleasures that should be contained in the context of responsibility and accomplishment. So that's why we have the delay of marriage that we do. When you don't have this, people get married. There's a drive that's driving them. Pornography numbs that, though. The feelings that should be associated with the reward of growing up and gaining a wife become available without the need to do anything meaningful at all, just a few taps on a screen. Even the pagan Jordan Peterson says that all pleasure and no responsibility is deadening to men. Deadening to men. Lewis writes, this is a little bit of a long quote, but he says, for me, the real evil, so Lewis is writing in the 50s, for me, the real evil of masturbation would be that it takes an appetite which in lawful use leads the individual out of himself to complete and correct his own personality in that of another. And finally, in children and even grandchildren. And it turns it back. It sends the man back into the prison of himself, there to keep a harem of imaginary brides. And this harem, once admitted, works against his ever getting out and really uniting with a real woman. For the harem is always accessible, always subservient, calls for no sacrifices or adjustments, and can be endowed with erotic and psychological attractions which no real woman can rival. Among those shadowy brides, he's always adored, always the perfect lover, No demand is made on his unselfishness. No mortification ever imposed on his vanity. In the end, they become merely the medium through which he increasingly adores himself. Writing really before the days of any sort of mass pornography. Certainly before the days of AI. That's where we're quickly headed, is AI sex bots. So we got to be ready, brothers. So culturally, we're in a bad spot. Now I want to turn to pornography's lies. Lots to say, but I'm just going to limit myself to 4. The lies of pornography. Number 1, the lie is that it will satisfy you. And you already know it doesn't. It's a lie. Draws you in as if it's going to be satisfying, and that is a lie. I'm really appreciative of Hebrews 11. Hebrews 11, 24, 25 speaks of Moses choosing to suffer with the people of God rather than enjoy the fleeting pleasures of sin. I just love the realism of the Bible, because if there were no pleasure in sin, none of us would have any problem with it. Sin is pleasurable, but I love that little adjective. It's fleeting. It doesn't last. It doesn't last. It doesn't satisfy at the end of the day. You think it will. It does not. AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, will talk about playing the movie till the end. So if you struggle with alcoholism, you're really the rest of your life you're tempted. You got to be careful, and so there's often a temptation to have another drink. And so one of the tools they use is, hold on, play the movie till the end. How's that going to go? It starts with 1, and then 2, and then 10. Play the movie till the end. Well, this is what we got to do when it comes to the temptation, the lust. Doesn't satisfy. You're going to want more and more. It's like trying to quench your thirst by drinking salt water. It's addictive. It literally rewires your brain. There's a website called yourbrainonporn.com. There's a book called The Rewiring of the Brain. Things that we know spiritually and biblically, but now we're learning from neurobiology. Arousal releases dopamine, which is the neurochemical that leads to the reward center, which creates new nerve pathways that encourage you to do it again, making it easier to do it the next time, harder not to do it the next time. And there's this repeated rush of various brain chemicals that rewires the brain's reward pathway. It can eventually become a default setting. And so your brain connects the pleasure with the activity. It also releases oxytocin, vasopressin, which chemically bonds us to the other person as you have an orgasm. The Bible calls this one flesh. Flip over to 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 14. And God raised the Lord. Sorry, where am I at? 6:14. God raised the Lord will also raise us up by his power. Do you not know that your bodies are members of Christ? Shall I then take the members of Christ and make them members of a prostitute? Never. Or do you not know that he who is joined to a prostitute becomes one body with her? For as it is written, the two will become one flesh. But he who is joined to the Lord becomes one spirit with him. Flee from sexual immorality. Every other, by the way, that word sexual immorality in Greek is porneia. It's a broad term. It really refers to any and all types of sexual sin. It's where we get our word, pornography. Flee from it. Every other sin a person commits is outside the body, but the sexually immoral person sins against his own body. So it's not that sexual sin's worse. Sometimes we can feel that way, as if it's worse than other sins. It's not worse, but it is different because it is designed by God to produce oneness. So it attaches. And here he's talking about a prostitute, but it's broader than that. Verse 19, or do you not know that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit within you, whom you have from God? You're not your own, you were bought with a price. So glorify God in your body. So we're chemically and spiritually bonded to the person. And so when it is a screen, it's a pixeled prostitute. You're literally bonding with images on a screen. It's what the brain scientists call neuroplasticity, these neurons that fire together, wire together, changing. It actually over time changes the chemistry of our brain. And it's really dangerous for young people where the brain's still developing. And they've done studies that shows that it hijacks the brain in the same ways that cocaine and meth and amphetamines do. Lights up the same parts, stimulates the same areas, releases the same chemicals. It's where we have to protect ourselves and protect young ones. Letting kids have unmonitored access to a smartphone is like encouraging an alcoholic to set up a cot to sleep at night in a liquor store. They're not able to overcome. And it's both an upper on the way to orgasm, dopamine high like cocaine, but then it's a downer afterwards. You crash with an opiate release like heroin, downer. Dopamine, then opiates. The release of opiates is why you want to go to sleep right after, chemically. Norepinephrine is released just prior to orgasms, and then the opiates, which are responsible for storing the memory of what caused the pleasure. And so what happens is a neurological snapshot takes place, binding us to the object that led to the orgasm. And God's design that was ever only to be one woman. Oh man, how beautiful would that be? You're really only ever supposed to see one naked woman, that one who you've covenanted with. And pornography has caused us to be attached spiritually and even chemically to image after image after image, bound to that object. And that's why many of you can recall right now the image of the first pornographic image you saw, because it's burned into your brain. Stuff is wicked. So it never satisfies, guys. You know it. You need more and more stimulation to reach the same effect. Brain scientists call this the Coolidge effect. You have to have something new, and so there's this renewed interest in new partners, or in this case, new images. And dopamine surges with novel, new stimuli and fuels reward-driven learning. And so the type of images that you need to release the same amount of dopamine gets more erotic, more ultimately stranger and stranger. At one point, maybe just a set of a bare breast was enough, a certain amount of dopamine. But the next time, you need something different, and you need something different. And ultimately, it gets stranger and stranger and stranger until ultimately, this is where you end up having child pornography. It starts way beyond that and ultimately gets stranger and stranger, or animal stuff. You find people who look at garbage that they themselves never dreamed they would ever look at, much less be aroused by. The levels of perversity just increase. We're studying the Journal of Adolescent Health. Showed that college freshmen who had looked at porn had experienced, quote, increased tolerance, resulting in a turn toward more bizarre and esoteric material, increased risk of body image problems, especially among girls, and erroneous and exaggerated conceptions of how prevalent certain sexual behaviors, including risky to dangerous behaviors, actually are. Changes you. You think it's actually normal when it's not. I recently heard that 100% of child molesters and rapists had a serious pornography problem long before they committed the crime. There's an interview with Ted Bundy on his final night. I think it was James Dobson. It's old. And he said this: you reach a point where the pornography only goes so far. And then you begin to wonder if actually doing it will give you that which is beyond just looking at it. A Cambridge study about a decade ago showed that pornography use drives novelty seeking. You got to have something new. And so users need more and more extreme content over time in order to achieve that same level of arousal. And so it escalates with the addictive nature. You need more and more to feel the same level of enjoyment. And so all the hardcore stuff ends up being sought out. And you enjoy it less, but you want more and more. And novelty will trigger more dopamine, which is why you'll have men that will often just click through image after image after image and delaying masturbation. 2 Peter 1:14 says they have eyes full of adultery, insatiable for sin. Click image after image because your brain's seeking to build that extra amount. Over time, it's flooded. It just shuts down some of the dopamine receptors, which means the porn viewer doesn't get the same high, must seek out more illicit porn for the same effect. Screwtape Letters talk about it being an ever-increasing craving for an ever-diminishing pleasure. an ever increasing craving for an ever diminishing pleasure. Or Edmund, in that Turkish delight, the more he ate, the more he wanted to eat. Never satisfies, brothers. Prophet Jeremiah says, we're hewing out broken cisterns that hold no water when we have at our disposal the fountain of life. Proverbs 27:20, never satisfied are the eyes of man. Proverbs 5:3, for the lips of a forbidden woman drip honey, and her speech is smoother than oil, but in the end she is bitter as wormwood, sharp as a two-edged sword. Her feet go down to death, her steps follow the path to Sheol. It does not satisfy. It's a lie. It lies about sex. Pornography is not real sex. It's not how it works. It's not what women do. It's not what women say. It's not what women want. It's literally a performance by actors and actresses, faking, posing to provide the angle for the viewer. It mocks God's good design, and it ruins how you think about sex. Tim Challies, in his book, Sexual Detox, talks about sex between believers, married that are believers. It's Tinder. You can just ask, is pornography Tinder? He says sex is sweet. Is pornography sweet? Sex is selfless and giving. Pornography is about taking and conquest. Sex has boundaries. Porn scoffs at boundaries. Pornography is designed by Satan to arouse a hardened heart. It's violent. It's degrading. It tells you sex is about self-fulfillment, self-centered. It creates a desire for others, but then turns you in on yourself. One of my biggest concerns in our culture is the fact that porn is functioning for sex ed for young people, formally in some government schools, actually. But also, as young men are watching pornography, it's shaping them, it's teaching them, and it's teaching them wrongly. Another study concluded with this reality. The largest content analysis of mainstream online pornography to date analyzed 131,000 titles of videos recommended to first-time users on, and I won't list them, there's 3 big websites. Let me read that again in case you're not tracking. Mainstream online pornography to date analyzed 130,000 titles of videos recommended to first-time users on their websites. Reported that 1 in every 8 titles described sexual violence, including incest, non-consent, assault, rape, and underage participants. There's a recent study in the UK among college girls that 58% had been choked during sex. 58%. Where's that coming from? It's because they're fornicating with young men who've been trained by pornography and think it's normal, and their tastes have been trained now that they find arousal by choking a woman. 58%. Repeat exposure can render the once appalling appealing. Toby Sumpter says, if you saw a woman being gang raped in a back alley, would you stop and masturbate? It lies about sex. Number 3, it lies about women in all kinds of ways. It totally distorts female sexuality. In reality, women are very different. They're like crock pots. But in a pornographic video, one touch makes her squeal. It's lies. Again, because the main audience is men. So pornography turns women into men. And there are a lot of different reasons why we may be tempted to look at pornography. It's not merely lust or pleasure. It could be loneliness. It could be comfort. It could be stress. It could be power. But men who look at pornography are poor excuses for leaders, right? Because what are we saying? Lead, love, provide, protect. The first thing we have to lead is ourselves. Self-control. That's why we start the way we do. You can't lead others if you're not leading yourself. If you're not leading well, there will be consequences, right? So you think about your marriage. If you're not leading well, if you're not leading in a godly way, you're not going to be receiving respect probably. You're not going to be receiving admiration. And men have a deep need for both, respect and for admiration. That's why Ephesians 5 will summarize the wife's need as love and the man's need for respect, right? Ephesians 5:33, however, let each of you love his wife as himself, and let the wife see that she respects her husband. And so there's this basic desire by a man for approval. First, divine approval, but then your wife, first and foremost, and then other men. And so men want admiration. And also, in the bedroom, men actually receive pleasure when we give pleasure to our wives. We want our wives to experience pleasure in the bedroom. We receive pleasure from doing so. And that's a key combination that porn lies about. A man's need for admiration and the fact that men want to please women sexually. It's one of the appeals. Because in a distorted, fake world, you actually think you're being admired as you watch her admiring another man. Or you see the pleasure she's experiencing and you put yourself there as if you're the one giving her the pleasure. The desire for respect and admiration, those are fine. Those are God-given. But men wrongly look to pornography rather than to a godly wife. And in pornography, you imagine that you're the man, she's acting, she's performing as she worships you or what you're giving her, and she's faking as if she's receiving immense pleasure. Rather than finding a wife and leading and loving and providing and protecting, you fantasize that this woman on the screen's admiring you. And you're pleasuring her. It's a lie. It's a lie, brothers. And porn presents women as objects of degradation, objects of consumption, humiliation. Men are depicted as users. It really is a socially acceptable form of abuse. Don't even go into the connections with trafficking. Again, it's teaching you about sex wrongly, lies, and it's teaching you lies about women. It's mentoring you. It's shaping your desires and your taste. It's a sex ed curriculum designed by demons. Lies about women. Women are made in the image of God. And most porn stars are not there by choice. Many of them have to take drugs just to get through the scenes. Many of them vomit after the scenes. They don't put that in there. That might not help your arousal. Consider her as a person. Add this to your tool belt. She's a person made in the image of God. Someone desperate and empty, broken and hurt, lost. Dignify her. Don't participate in the abuse of her. That's what lust does. Lust dehumanizes others. That's why strippers have stage names. One pastor put it like this: a great way to empty out these clubs would be to stand up before a dancer was about to come on and say, "This is Sultry Susan," but her real name is Mary Walensky. She has 4 brothers and sisters. Her parents divorced when she was 5. Her mother is an alcoholic. She's been married twice. Her last husband beat her. She has 2 kids and is struggling to get by. She likes dogs and would love to be a dental hygienist someday. Lust wants low lights, a haze of alcohol, and lots of lies, end quote. Porn stars are usually women who've been sexually or domestically abused, an inordinate amount of foster children. Masculine men don't look at porn. We lead and we love and we provide and we protect. We don't abuse and we don't harm. The fourth lie is there's going to be no consequences in this life or in the life to come. In reality, there are a host of consequences. Sexual impairment among young men has skyrocketed in the last 10 years. It's one of those hockey sticks. There's this new phenomenon called porn-induced erectile dysfunction. Men who look at porn excessively end up not being able to get it up with a real woman. 25 years ago, early 2000s, ED affected 2 to 3% of young men. 25 years ago, 2 to 3%. Now it's up in the 25 to 35s. What's the difference? What happened in 25 years? Well, you know what happened. There's a name for it, death grip syndrome. Naomi Wolf once described the male perspective of the college sex scene like this. Real naked women are just bad porn. Been discipled and distorted and shaped so that real naked women are just bad porn. We now have the sexual sophistication of beetles. In 1981, biologists studied the Australian jewel beetle, found that the male beetles preferred humping discarded beer bottles to actual female beetles because they were more shiny and golden than the actual beetles. Pornography causes social anxiety. You know this. Depression, low motivation, and a negative self-perception. Tim Challies writes, when you indulge in sexual sin, it reveals what you truly believe about sexuality. You believe that the pleasure of sin is better than the pleasure of obeying God by enjoying sex the way God created it to be enjoyed. You believe that the pleasure you derive from your sin is greater than the consequences of your sin. And the consequences your sin will have on you and those around you. You believe that your momentary pleasure is greater than the rewards the Lord has for you, both in this life and in the life to come. There are consequences here. There are consequences in the life to come. Flip over to Matthew chapter 5, verse 27. Sermon on the Mount. $5.27. You've heard that it was said, you shall not commit adultery, but I say to you that everyone who looks at a woman with lustful intent has already committed adultery with her in his heart. If your right eye causes you to sin, tear it out and throw it away. For it's better that you lose one of your members than that your whole body be thrown into hell. And if your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off and throw it away. For it's better that you lose one of your members than your whole body go into hell. The words of the Lord Jesus Christ. It's very clear what he's talking about, right? Adultery at heart. He's talking about lust, and he mentions your right hand. And listen, it's better just to cut it off. And not just cut it off, right? You cut it off and throw it away. Now, of course, this is hyperbolic. There were actually people in the early church that castrated themselves thinking that was going to solve the lust problem. You don't need balls to lust. That's not what he's talking about. But he's talking about getting drastic with your sin. And notice, he mentions hell. Now, obviously, you're going to battle sin. We're going to talk about that. Christians battle sin, but that's the key. We battle it. But if you're not battling it and your life is characterized by sexual immorality, you have no reason to think you won't be in hell. I didn't say it. He said it. Are you battling? Flip over to Ephesians 5. Verse 3, Ephesians 5:3. We'll look at 3 to 5. Sexual immorality, it's that same word, porneia. Sexual immorality and all impurity or covetousness must not even be named among you, as is proper among saints. Not even names, not even a hint. Verse 4, let there be no filthiness, nor foolish talk, nor crude joking, which are out of place, but instead let there be thanksgiving. For you may be sure of this. So he just warned us. He just warned the church. Hey, nothing, not even names. Then he says, you may be sure of this, that everyone who is sexually immoral, practices it, or impure, or covetousness, that is not idolater, has no inheritance in the kingdom of Christ and God. He says, if your life is characterized by unrepentant sexual sin or otherwise, you will not be in the kingdom. That's what verse 5 says. I didn't say it. He said it. You're like, well, I don't know. We'll look at verse 6. Let no one deceive you with empty words, false assurance. For because of these things, the wrath of God comes upon the sons of disobedience. He's talking to the church. It's the same thing in 1 Corinthians 6, 9 to 11. I didn't read that earlier. I started at 14, but he says the same thing. No inheritance in the kingdom of Christ if your life is characterized by these. There are consequences in your life. Young guys, there will be consequences in your marriage. If there's no repentance, there'll be eternal consequences. We are sinners as Christians, absolutely, but we are repenting sinners. We turn from it, we hate it, we fight it. All right, so let's talk about then a battle plan. Those are the lies, you all know that. How can we battle? One of the things is that we get it out in the open as a church. It's one of the things we want to be about at Southside. We're not afraid to talk about our sin, and we're not afraid to talk about the nasty sin. It's all nasty. And so we're a church where the men in particular aren't afraid to talk about pornography. It's really the only way we're going to make progress together. And so what's a battle plan? Well, you got to be ready. That's the biggest piece. We got to have our eyes open. It's going to come to you. That's the hard part in our day. And so we got to have a plan. We need a battle plan. Luther said you can't stop birds from flying over your head, but you can stop them from making a nest in your hair. You got to have a battle, and unfortunately, the battle's never going to end. It's never going to end. And your direction is more important than your pace. It's a long war. Oh, it's so long. But you can get there. Heath Lambert's got a really good book called Finally Free. I would recommend every one of you read it. Finally Free. It's on pornography. And he says that change takes time. Old ways of living must die. New ways of living must form. New kinds of thinking must be learned. If you're enslaved to pornography, God will not usually change your desires instantly, but by degrees. And he does. There are so many guys in this church that have gained victory. You can have a porn-free life. You can, and listen, it is so good to be free from pornography. Amen. So joyful, so liberating, and you can get there, but you got to battle. And it takes a long time. It takes a long time till you can genuinely not be tempted. You genuinely know that is a no-go. I know. I played the movie till the end. I know where that ends. It ain't worth it. Jesus is better. 9 steps. Number 1. Realize that you can gain victory. Already gave it away. You can. Some of you just feel like, I can't get there. You need to know that you can. And you must. Romans chapter 6. Actually, let's turn there. Romans 6:11. Romans 6:11, you've been united to Christ, he tells us in the first few verses. So, verse 11, you must consider yourselves dead to sin and alive to God in Christ. There's this mental reckoning that's got to take place in your head. Consider yourself, reckon yourself. You are dead to sin. You are alive to God in Christ Jesus. You are a new person. Verse 12, let not sin therefore reign in your mortal body. Sin is still going to be there, but you don't let it reign. Sin is still present, but sin is no longer president. Doesn't reign in your mortal body to make you obey its passions. Do not present your members, your body parts, to sin as instruments for unrighteousness, but present yourselves to God as those who've been brought from death to life, and your members to God as instruments for righteousness. For sin will have no dominion over you, since you're not under law, but under grace. You've been set free. You can walk in newness of life. What he says in Galatians 5, walk by the Spirit and you will not gratify the desires of the flesh. Galatians 5:16, Galatians 5:24, we have crucified the flesh. We're new people. We're new men. We can gain victory. Number 2, but you got to view it as war, because it is. You got to see it as war. In many ways, it's the main war today. Can't be like Augustine. Augustine had a really sexual, promiscuous past before he was converted, and he took his time in Confessions, which is a great book, all you should read, his Confessions, long prayer. He says, grant me chastity. He's talking about his process. He's getting there, and he prayed, grant me chastity, Lord, but not yet. You can't have that mindset. Can't have that mindset. It's got to be a battle. Jesus says we can't take it seriously enough, right? Cut off a hand, pluck out an eye, throw it far from you. J.C. Ryle says the Christian life is not a playground, but a battleground. War requires drastic measures. Follow the example of Job, 31:1. I've made a covenant, a commitment with my eyes. How then could I gaze at a virgin? A covenant with my eyes, or 2 Corinthians 10:3. Notice commitment. 2 Corinthians 10:3 has violent language. We take every thought captive. We arrest it and we make it obey Christ. You take it. You're going to be tempted all the time, the rest of your life. You take it captive and you bring it captive to the obedience of Christ. We wage war by violently arresting ungodly thoughts and we take them captive. It's war. Number 3, it's a worship issue. It's kind of what Charlie said. It's a worship issue. So the temptation comes and you need to frame it. Okay, this is a worship issue. Am I going to worship my sin and myself, or am I going to worship God? If you break the 7th commandment, adultery in heart, you're breaking the 10th commandment as well, covetous. You're wanting something more than you want God, and you're really then breaking the 1st commandment. You put something before God. It's a worship issue. You desire someone who's not your spouse. You covet, you replace God with lust, or whatever it is that you're seeking to relieve, stress, gain comfort, exercise power, or merely for sensual pleasure. And so when the temptation comes, you have a choice to make. Which God will you worship? Number 4, watch and pray. Be watchful. Oh, Puritan virtue. Jesus says, watch and pray. 1 Corinthians 16, one of our verses, be watchful. Stand firm in the faith. Act like men. Be strong. 1 Peter 5:8, be sober-minded, be watchful. Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion seeking someone to devour. Be on guard. I talk a lot about this book trailer from a long time ago called Tempted and Tried, and it was on the temptation narrative. And it's a trailer for the book, and one of the scenes is a guy, and you can tell like parents left, he comes down, he's looking around, he gets on his computer, and you know what he's about to do, and this snake just slithers right through his legs. Not being watchful, not being on guard, not being aware of the enemy who wants to come and devour him. Some of this is knowing your weak spots. Really, with any of your sin, interrogating your sin. This is where it can be really helpful, like write your own screw tape letter. Like if you had a demon wanting to take you out, how would you do it? And specifically with this. So if the enemy was going to tempt you to look at pornography, what time of day would it be? What space would it be in? What means would you access it? Is there certain like shows or even music in your life that incites lust in you? Maybe keep a journal, a lust journal. When you've been tempted and when you fall and interrogate it, what happened? What happened? Okay, I fell. I was here. I was tired. I was hungry. That's a big one. Halt. My family talks a lot about halting. We are prone to sin when we don't halt, H-A-L-T, when we're hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. It's not to dismiss or blame the sin, but when we're hungry or angry or lonely or tired, we are more prone to sin. And so is there an area in your life? Watch and pray. Romans 13:14, put on the Lord Jesus Christ and make no provision for the flesh to gratify its desires. No provision. And so watch and pray. Be watchful. Number 5, get accountability. You're not going to get there alone. You're not going to gain victory by yourself. Give up now. It ain't going to happen. Again, Augustine, why are you relying on yourself only to find yourself unreliable? There's no biblical category for Lone Ranger Christianity. Lone Rangers are dead Rangers. Hebrews 3, listen to this. We won't turn there. Take care, brothers. Take care, lest there be in any of you, church, an evil, unbelieving heart, leading you to fall away from the living God. I just wonder how many people who've fallen away. I mean, it's every week. It's every week people falling away. This week it was Stephen Nichols, Ligonier Ministries. I watch his DVDs all the time. I wonder how many men have fallen away from the faith that started with pornography. Hidden, secret, private, fatty tissue getting gained around that conscience over time. It affects other parts of the life, ultimately. Take care lest there be in any of you an evil, unbelieving heart, leading you to fall away from the living God. You've got to understand that you, every one of you, has the potential to fall away. That's what God's word says anyway. But exhort one another every day, as long as it is called today, so that none of you may be hardened by the deceitfulness of sin. Such a helpful verse, Hebrews 3:12 and 13. Okay, we all are prone to wander. Lord, I feel it. We could have our heart can become callous and we could ultimately fall away. And what is the means in this verse that God gives us to not fall away? One another, exhorting one another every day. Do it today. It's a big emphasis in Hebrews. Today, right? Today, tomorrow's the devil's day. Why not tomorrow? Tomorrow's going to be harder. Do it today. One another. We got to have one another. We got to have accountability here if we're going to get anywhere. How do we take care in that verse? Well, how do we avoid sin? We hear exhortations from fellow church members. We need one another to help one another from being hardened by sin. James 5 says, confess your sins to one another and then pray for one another. I'm not saying do it here necessarily, but maybe in a smaller group, especially in D groups. If you're not in a D group, groups of 3 to 5 men who go deep together and want to grow together, that's a really good context to confess sin and fight this sin together. Home groups can be, but more for fellowship. You got wives present often, other genders present, but a smaller group is a great place to do that. Proverbs 28:13, whoever conceals his transgressions will not prosper, but he who confesses and forsakes them will obtain mercy. So you got to have accountability. And again, in this kind of church, we want to normalize this battle, this fight. Number 6, build high walls. In other words, restrict access. How does it get into your life? How is it that you keep sinning? Well, pinpoint that area, that hole in the fence, and fix it. And again, this is where I get frustrated with guys. And just to be frank, I won't meet with the guy. If a guy tells me I'm struggling with pornography, okay, next question. It's not next question, but eventually the question comes, where's it coming from? Well, it's my phone. Okay, what are you going to do about your phone? What's next? And, well, now I need it. Now I got to have it. I need this. Well, then I'm not going to meet with you again because I'm a busy guy and you don't seem that serious. What does Jesus say? You cut it off and you throw it from you. If you're not willing to restrict the access and eliminate it, I don't think you're that serious about following the Lord. You're not that serious about fighting the sin. You need to make it really hard to sin, completely remove the access point. And what we're doing here, it's not that you can never get anything back, but if you're in the midst of it, what you have to do is you got to build some really high walls in order to create some space to starve the beast, to recalibrate your conscience. And then maybe you can lower the walls a little bit. But you got to get radical, especially at the beginning of the fight. Build high walls. Men will pray, Lord, lead me not into temptation, and then surf the web alone in the middle of the night. If you're not willing to be inconvenienced, you're not serious enough about fighting the sin. You may just have worldly sorrow rather than godly sorrow. So ask hard questions. Are there stores I need to avoid? Are there music and movies I need to cut out? Are there devices I need to either lock down or get rid of? App stores that need to be password protected. Passwords you need to give to someone else. Browser access that needs to be eliminated. You say, whoa, I need the internet. Well, Jesus says, get radical. Proverbs 6, do not desire her beauty in your heart and do not let her capture you with her eyelashes. For the price of a prostitute is only a loaf of bread, but a married woman hunts down a precious life. Can a man carry fire next to his chest and his clothes not be burned? Or can one walk on hot coals and his feet not be scorched? Again, these high walls, they're not going to change your heart. But the goal is to train yourself. The goal is to reawaken the conscience, shave off the fatty layers of hardening, build habits, patterns of honesty and trustworthiness and confession. So outward measures won't change the heart, but they may be needed in order to do the heart work. Number 7, wield the sword. Use the word. You're battling lust, which again, most of us do. It's going to be a rare guy that's not battling lust his whole life. We ought to have some of these verses down pat. Ephesians 5, 3-5, Matthew 5, 27, 1 Thessalonians 4. This is the will of God for you, your sanctification, that you learn how to handle your body. The word is vessel. It probably means vessel, instrument, with holiness and honor. Not like the pagans who don't know God. Use the word. Psalm 119:9. How can a young man keep his way pure? Isn't this what we're talking about tonight? It's the question. How can a young man keep his way pure? By guarding it according to your word. With my whole heart I seek you. Let me not wander from your commandments. I've stored up your word in my heart that I might not sin against you. Memorize the word. Number 8, you got to put off, but you also got to put on. This is coming from Ephesians 4. Put off, put on. Put off, renew the mind, put on. It's not enough merely to mortify. It's not enough merely to kill sin. You've got to replace it. Piper says, we got to fight fire with fire. The fire of lust's pleasures must be fought with the fire of God's pleasures. If we try to fight the fire of lust with prohibitions and threats alone, even the terrible warnings of Jesus, we will fail. We must fight it with the massive promise of superior happiness. We must swallow up the little flicker of lust's pleasure in the conflagration of holy satisfaction. Thomas Chalmers is an old Scottish, basically Puritan, really Renaissance man, quite a stud, and a preacher as well, and he has a sermon. Really, he's only known for one sermon. Really, all you need to know is the title. It's a great sermon, but the expulsive power of a new affection. So we've got to put off and we've got to fight, but the negative is not enough. We've got to turn to the Lord. Turn from the flicker of lust pleasure, Piper says, to the conflagration of holy satisfaction. And when you have a new affection for the Lord and for his goodness and the joy of obedience, it's expulsive. That's why that title's so strong. The expulsive power of a new affection. And so that you love the Lord so much and you love your wife so much that it expels those softer, weaker, fleeting pleasures. 2 Timothy 2:22, flee youthful passions and pursue righteousness, faith, love, and peace, along with those who call on the Lord from a pure heart. Flee youthful passions, pursue the good stuff. Put off, put on. Romans 13 again, put on the Lord Jesus Christ and make no provision for the flesh to gratify its desires. Flip over to Ephesians chapter 4. Ephesians 4:21. Assuming that you've heard about him and were taught in him, as the truth is in Jesus, to put off your old man, the old Adam, the old self, which belongs to your former manner of life and is corrupt through deceitful desires, and to be renewed in the spirit of your minds, and to put on the new man, the new self, the new Adam, created after the likeness of God in true righteousness and holiness. And so again, this applies to our battle with all sin. And really what you've got to grow in, what we've all got to grow in, is this becoming second nature and becoming so fast, right? You think about what needs to happen. The temptation enters your life. And again, the last 4 or 5 times I've seen nudity beyond my wife, I wasn't seeking it. It came to me. And one of those times, actually probably most of the time, I was by myself. One time Alicia was with me. And so in that moment, okay, here it is. It came to me. That's one thing, right? That's a whole different battle when it came to you. And man, there's just so much right then that has to happen in your mind and your heart. What do you have to do? Well, you have to put it off. A quick no, I'm out. Like toss the iPad, toss the phone, slam the Mac, whatever it is. I'm going to put off. And then you're renewing your mind, and this is what you have to do. Everything we've been talking about, really, guys, really the whole night tonight, when it comes to pornography, this is where we're at. Renewing our mind. Okay, this stuff's a lie. That's a dead end. I know it doesn't satisfy. I'm going to play the movie to the end. I know where this goes. I'm going to feel like trash in 7 minutes. It ain't worth it. I'm going to dishonor God, and I'm going to end up feeling crummy. I'm going to have an upper, and then I have a lower in terms of chemically, and then I have guilt because I've dishonored my God over a pixeled prostitute. That ain't worth it. It lies about sex. This thing is misforming my desires. It lies about women. This woman's made in the image of God, and here I am participating. And it's gonna have consequences. All that needs to happen so fast, man. Like right here, okay. This is where we're getting at self-control. And it happens in all of life, right? This is all of life. Think about one of the tendencies of men is lust. That's why there's so much Bible about it, but also anger or shortness. That's why it's called out. Fathers, don't exasperate your children. Or 1 Peter 3, don't be harsh with your wife. Why? Because the fallen tendency of a man is to be that way. So you think about it. What has to happen? Your wife sins against you. She's wrong. Okay, it happens. There's a whole lot that's got to happen before I open my mouth. If it's just the flesh, it ain't going to be good. The old Adam, it's not going to happen. I was jogging one time in Dripping Springs. Dripping Springs has those coral snakes all over the place, but there's the other snakes that look like them. I forgot how it is. Like watch it, black on red, you're dead or something. I don't remember. But we were running, and it just looked like the actual venomous coral snake, not the fake. And this guy was a fairly new believer. We're jogging, and it just takes off, and he just jumps, and I forgot which cuss word, but just belted a cuss word. And he's like, oh, man, I'm so sorry. I saw the snake, and the old Adam came out. The old Adam came out. And that's what happens in any moment. The temptation comes in, old Adam is ready to launch, but you gotta stop. Okay, she is in the wrong. She has offended me. She has hurt my feelings. How am I going to respond? And you got to have a lot of renewal. I'm going to put off. I'm not going to be smart aleck. I'm not going to defend myself. I'm not going to turn this on her. I got to renew my mind. I've been there, Galatians 6:1. I've been caught in sin. I have been there. I know what it feels like. I'm grieved for her because, man, she fell into it like I've fallen into it before. And so now, in a spirit of gentleness, I'm going to say, babe, I don't have a gospel posture. You know, that's just got to happen in like 1 second, right? Same thing with your children. Your children straight up rebel against you, and it causes damage to your home. I mean, you got like 1, 2, 3, 4 seconds. That's so quick. And so we gain self-control in all of life, and it filters over into our marriages, into our parenting, into lust. This is what we got to do. We put off all the old practice. We renew our mind. We're preaching to ourselves. This is where you got to have a storehouse of God's word. You got to give the Spirit something to work with. You renew your mind, and then you put on. Flip over to Colossians 3. It says much the same. Pick it up at verse 5. Put to death. Again, you can't get more violent than that. What is earthly in you? Sexual immorality, impurity, passion, evil desire. To be honest with you, I don't know the difference in those 4. Sexual immorality, porneia. Impurity. What's the difference between sexual immorality and impurity? Passion, of course, in the context, he's talking about sexual passion. Evil desire and covetousness, which is idolatry. On account of these, the wrath of God is coming. He's writing to the church at Colossae. In these too, you once walked when you were living in them, but now you must put them all away. Anger and wrath and malice and slander and obscene talk from your mouth. Do not lie to one another, seeing that you've put off the old self with its practices and put on the new self, which is being renewed in the knowledge after the image of its creator. Here, there's not Greek and Jew, circumcised, uncircumcised, barbarian, Scythian, slave, free, but Christ is all and in all. So you put off and you put on. You got to get quick at it. You bounce the eyes. You change the channel. You look to Christ. You consider your wife's face. You think about your kids. You think about your witnesses. Your witness. You think about the promises of God. You think about the cross. You think about having to confess to your wife. You think about your kids seeing you. You think about the aftermath. You play the movie to the end. You put off, you renew your mind, you put on. Do whatever you have to do. Do push-ups, read the Bible, clean the house, take a cold shower. Whatever to put off. Number 9, look to Jesus. Keep the gospel front and center. What the enemy loves to do with this sin in particular is to heap on guilt and to heap on shame. The nature of this sin carries with it this added layer. Satan goes from the tempter, real quick he puts on the hat of the accuser. From seduction to condemnation. And again, brain chemistry is tied to this. Uppers up to orgasm followed by downers. And so we got to keep the gospel front and center in our battle against lust. So brothers, be reminded of the glory of the gospel. Jesus is not ashamed of you. He's not surprised by your sin. Not like, it's not like he chose you before the foundation of the world and you fell into lust and he's like, snap, I didn't see that one coming. Let me erase it out of the book of life that was written before the ages began. He's not surprised. He loves you. He's not grossed out by you. He's for you. He died for your sin. He died for this sin. There's abundant mercy, lavish grace. The enemy would have you wallow in guilt and shame. Listen to my favorite Luther quote. When the devil throws our sins up to us and declares we deserve death and hell, we ought to speak thus: I admit that I deserve death and hell. What of it? Does this mean that I shall be sentenced to eternal damnation? By no means. For I know one who suffered and made a satisfaction in my behalf. His name is Jesus Christ, the Son of God. Where he is, there I shall be also. And so you preach the gospel. You keep preaching the gospel to yourself. A gospel-fueled fight against lust. Leaning and falling on grace together in this fight. So sex is a good gift. That's why it's so important, why the Bible talks about it so much. And it is a good gift. It's why I always use the example of Mona Lisa. I don't personally appreciate the Mona Lisa, but if we had it here in Abilene, we wouldn't just have it on the wall, right? There would probably be a fake one on the wall. We'd lie to you and say it's the one. There'd be layers even over the fake one, right? Why? It's because of the value of it, though. Why does God have so many layers and walls and commandments again? It's not because God's a prude, quite the opposite. He designed the clitoris. He invented the orgasm. Didn't have to. He's not a prude. He's for it. It's just so precious that that's why he has boundaries and walls and guards. So sex is like fire. We got to respect it, keep it in its proper place. Keeps the whole house warm, but if we don't, it can burn it down. Keep it in its proper place. We can bask in its beauty. C.S. Lewis has a work of fiction called The Great Divorce. It's worth reading. It is fiction. It's not a theology of hell. But the story, if you haven't read it, is you have people from hell. They get on a bus. They're ghosts. They're not quite solid people, so they get on a bus and they take a tour up to the outskirts of heaven. Heaven is kind of over the mountains, and they're talking with various angels and spirits. Most of them in the book are very self-centered. That's what's the value of the book, is you see the grossness of self-centeredness and sin. Most of them turn back and go back to hell. As Lewis says elsewhere, the doors of hell are locked from the inside. So here in The Great Divorce, you've got a young guy who's there and he's observing and he's telling the story. He's on the bus and he's meeting different people and he's overhearing conversations between the ghosts, the people from hell, and the angels. One man comes up, ghost, coming from hell, and he's got a red lizard on his shoulder. It's representing lust. The red lizard represents lust in the story. And brothers, lust must be killed, not negotiated with. Can't be like Augustine. Grant me chastity, but not yet. It's not a Christian option. I want to read this. This is long, but it's good. I want to close our time with this. He says, I saw coming toward us a ghost who carried something on his shoulder. Like all the ghosts, he was unsubstantial, but they differed from one another as smokes differ. Some had been whitish. This one was dark and oily. What sat on his shoulder was a little red lizard, and it was twitching its tail like a whip and whispering things in his ear. As we caught sight of him, he turned his head to the reptile with a snarl of impatience. Shut up, I tell you, he said. It wagged its tail and continued to whisper to him. He ceased snarling and presently began to smile. Then he turned and started to limp westward away from the mountains, away from the mountains. He's going back. Off so soon, said a voice. The speaker was more or less human in shape, but larger than a man and so bright that I could hardly look at him. His presence smote on my eyes and on my body too, for there was heat coming from him as well as light, like the morning sun at the beginning of a tyrannous summer day. Yes, I'm off, said the ghost. Thanks for all your hospitality, but it's no good, you see. I told this little chap, here he indicated the lizard, that he'd have to be quiet if he came, which he insisted on doing. Of course, his stuff won't do here, I realize that, but he won't stop. I shall just have to go home. Would you like me to make him quiet, said the flaming spirit, an angel as I now understood. Of course I would, said the ghost. Then I will kill him, said the angel, taking a step forward. Oh, look out, you're burning me. Keep away, said the ghost, retreating. Do you want him killed? Well, you didn't say anything about killing him at first. I hardly meant to bother you with anything so drastic as that. It's the only way, said the angel, whose burning hands were now very close to the lizard. Shall I kill it? Well, that's a further question. I'm quite open to consider it, but it's a new point, isn't it? I mean, for the moment, I was only thinking about silencing it because up here, well, it's so damned embarrassing. May I kill it? Well, there's time to discuss that later. There is no time. May I kill it? Please, I never meant to be such a nuisance. Please, really, don't bother. Look, it's gone to sleep of its own accord. I'm sure it'll all be right now. Thanks ever so much. May I kill it? Honestly, I don't think there's the slightest necessity for that. I'm sure I shall be able to keep it in order now. I think the gradual process would be far better than killing it. The gradual process is of no use at all. Don't you think so? Well, I'll think over what you've said very carefully. I honestly will. In fact, I'd let you kill it now. But as a matter of fact, I'm not feeling frightfully well today. It would be most silly to do it now. I need to get in good health for the operation. Some other day, perhaps. There is no other day. All days are present now. Get back, you're burning me. How can I tell you to kill it? You'd kill me if you did. It is not so. Why, you're hurting me now. I never said it wouldn't hurt you. I said it wouldn't kill you. Oh, I know. You think I'm a coward. But it isn't that. Really, it isn't. I say, let me run back by tonight's bus, get an opinion from my own doctor, and I'll come again the first moment I can. This moment contains all moments. Why are you torturing me? You're jeering at me. How can I let you tear me in pieces? If you wanted to help me, why didn't you kill the damn thing without me asking before I knew? It'd be all over by now if you had. I cannot kill it against your will. It's impossible. Have I your permission? The angel's hands were almost closed on the lizard, but not quite. And then the lizard began chattering to the ghost so loud that even I could hear what it was saying. Be careful, it said. He can do what he says. He can kill me. One fatal word from you, and he will. Then you'll be without me forever and ever. It's not natural. How could you live? You'd be only a sort of ghost, not a real man as you are now. He doesn't understand. He's only a cold, bloodless, abstract thing. It may be natural for him, but it isn't for us. Yes, I know there are no real pleasures now, only dreams. But aren't they better than nothing? And I'll be so good. I admit I've sometimes gone too far in the past, but I promise I won't do it again. I'll give you nothing but really nice dreams, all sweet and fresh and almost innocent. You might say quite innocent. Have I your permission, said the angel to the ghost. I know it will kill me. It won't, but supposing it did. You're right, it would be better to be dead than to live with this creature. Then I may. Damn it, blast you, go on, can't you get it over? Do what you like, bellowed the ghost, but ended whimpering, God help me, God help me. Next moment, the ghost gave a scream of agony such as I've never heard on earth. The burning one closed his crimson grip on the reptile, twisted it while it bit and writhed, and then flung it, broken-backed, on the turf. Ow, that's done for me, gasped the ghost, reeling backwards. For a moment, I could make out nothing distinctly, and then I saw, between me and the nearest brush, unmistakably solid, but growing every moment solider, the upper arm and the shoulder of a man. Then, brighter, still and stronger, the legs and hands, the neck and golden head materialized while I watched. And if my attention had not wavered, I should have seen the actual completing of a man, an immense man, naked, not much smaller than the angel. What distracted me was the fact that at the same moment, something seemed to be happening to the lizard. At first, I thought the operation had failed. So far from dying, the creature was still struggling and even growing bigger. As it struggled and as it grew, it changed. Its hinder parts grew rounder. The tail, still flickering, became a tail of hair. that flickered between huge and glossy buttocks. Suddenly, I started back, rubbing my eyes. What stood before me was the greatest stallion I have ever seen. Silvery white, but with mane and tail of gold. It was smooth and shining, rippled with swells of flesh and muscle, whinnying and stamping with its hoofs. At each stamp, the land shook and the trees dindled. The new-made man turned and clapped the new horse's neck. It nosed his bright body. Horse and master breathed each into the other's nostrils. The man turned from it, flung himself at the feet of the burning one, and embraced them. When he rose, I thought his face shone with tears. But it may have been only the liquid love and brightness, one cannot distinguish them in that country, which flowed from him. I had not long to think about it. In joyous haste, the young man leapt upon the horse's back. Turning in his seat, he waved a farewell and then nudged the stallion with his heels. They were off before I knew well what was happening. There was riding, if you like. I came out as quickly as I could from among the bushes to follow them with my eyes, but already they were only like a shooting star, far off the green plain and soon among the foothills of the mountains. And then, still like a star, I saw them winding up, scaling what seemed impossible steps, and quicker every moment, till near the dim brow of the landscape, so high that I must strain my neck to see them. They vanished, bright themselves, into the rose brightness of that everlasting morning. Brothers, this moment contains all moments. Stop negotiating and kill the lizard. Glory awaits you on the other side.